Hello everyone, welcome to Arizona Azbillwatch for another lively discussion of important and controversial bills. I am your host, Jose Borrajero. Thank you for watching. There is a lot going on at the Capitol these days, so stay tuned because we have a fantastic show for you today. But before we do that, some housekeeping items. Number one, we would love for you to watch the whole show from beginning to end. However, you may also fast forward to the bills of your choice by using the handy chart that we have placed down below. Secondly, if you like what you see, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. It means a lot to us. Third, it costs money to do what we do. So if you like what you see, you may contribute by going to our website, azpeopleslobbyist.com. So with all that out of the way, let's look at the first bill. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are going to begin this week's session by providing a little bit of a civics lesson because I have had this question come up quite often. And right now we have two sets of bills that we're going to be looking at today that raise this question. And the question is, why is it that we have two identical bills doing the exact same thing, but they're two different bills, two different numbers, two different everything? Well, there's two instances in which that happens. Instance number one, you have a bill that is a straight bill, say for example an SB bill, which stands for Senate bill, and you have another bill that is SCR, standing for Senate Concurrent Resolution. Now, why that? Well, the SB bill, the regular bill, goes through the regular process, and at the end of that, it goes to the governor for a signature, which gives the governor the option of vetoing that bill. An SCR bill doesn't do that. If it gets through the legislature, it doesn't go to the governor, but it goes directly to the people in the form of a proposition to be voted on at the next election. Now, so why would you do that? Well, the main reason for doing that would be that the legislators feel that or fear that the governor may veto that bill. Correct. So they want to have a way of bypassing that.
I do have a question.
What with the question?
So do both of them go through the legislature together?
Not necessarily. They could, but not necessarily. They're two independent bills. They're totally separate. They go through the committee system, everything the same. It's just the same as there were two totally different bills.
So what if the governor chooses to approve the bill? Then what happens to the one that's going to the voters?
At that point, the legislature can just withdraw, not send it to the people. Except there's...
I knew there was an exception.
Well, no, there's nuances, folks, because here's the thing. If the bill goes to the people and it's voted yes, then it becomes what they call voter protected. It's a statute, but it's a statute that the legislature can never ever change. The only way to change that bill would be to have another resolution. So there may be a situation where they may want to take a chance and say, look, it looks like the voters are going to approve this, so why not have it approved, and then it can never be changed again.
Okay.
If it goes through the regular system, it's just another statute, and the next legislature can change it.
Well, there's another instance in which you may have identical bills, and that's where you have one in the House and one in the Senate that are a mirror of each other.
And why would they do that?
Well, in one instance, the reason for it is that it may pass in one house and fail in the other, but it still then has a chance to be presented to the governor for signature.
Exactly. What happens is you have two bills that are running parallel, and let's say that the one in the House is doing real well, and it looks like it's going to pass. The one in the Senate, it's not doing so well. So that you drop the one in the Senate and concentrate your effort on the one in the House, and you have a better chance. Let's face it, every time...
So the one in the House does not need to go back to the Senate?
It does, but it's different when it's already passed the House. You have a lot more leverage when you go to the Senate, as opposed to the one in the Senate that was kind of weak to begin with.
Okay.
So you have one bill that advanced and has a lot more leverage, and it has a better chance then of passing the second chamber. So those are the two reasons why you will have parallel bills. One is to avoid a veto, and the other one is to guarantee that it will get through even when it has a little bit of a problem in one of the chambers.
So now I hope the public is as confused as we are.
Well, you may be confused, but I am not.
Oh, well,
understand
the
now.
legislature is, yeah. So,
The
okay,
legislature is always confused.
all right.
Senate bills SB 1003 and SCR 1001. Folks, we normally deal only with one bill at a time, but this time we're doing two bills concurrently together, and the reason for that is that these two bills do pretty much the same thing. We explain at the beginning of this session that there's reasons why there will be two bills which are identical, but one is a regular bill, an SB bill in this case, and the other would be an SCR bill, which is a Senate concurrent resolution type of bill. So
And that means that it could possibly be sent to the people to
yeah,
vote on.
one goes through the governor and the other one does not. It
The
bypasses the governor.
SCR goes to the people.
Right. So that's the reason why we have two of them, and that's why we're putting them together into one discussion, because what we say about one is the same as we would say about the other. So, getting to the actual reason or the actual text of the bill, this is a prohibition on photo radar. Now, this has been going around for a long time. Many times they've tried to prohibit photo radar. They got away with it. I mean, they prohibited the radar in the freeways, but they still have them in the communities.
In some of them, yeah.
Yeah, and so, Archie, do you think it's a good idea to not, or to prohibit cities from raising revenue by the use of photo radar?
Absolutely, I do. But to me, this bill is a protection of your privacy. A photo camera can be used for any number of purposes, and this prohibits that. It does a few other things too. It prohibits the use of state personnel for the service of private process. But the thing to me that I think really about this is the bill by Senator Rogers. And the one thing that she has done that I have not seen in any of the other bills is that she sets forth that it is the intent of the legislature. She sets forth what the intent of the legislature is in passing these bills, and that's very important. It's important because if it comes before a court, the parties to the action, as well as the court, may want to know what was the intent of the legislature in passing this bill. And she has explained that in this bill, and I think that's a very good thing. I think it needs to be adopted in every bill.
I agree. Gloria, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, and I agree with Archie. And also, I just doing a little research that it could take up to 150 days after the violation for the person to be even notified that they got the violation, which that is just too long. If you get a picture, you should be notified, or however, whatever, within a week or whatever, they should be able to do that. And also, one of the other things that they say is that there's a lot of these people that are getting repeated tickets, and it's actually, the penalties for photo radar can be worse than that of a DUI because of all the penalties and so on and so forth. So if they want, I don't agree. I think we shouldn't have the photo radar, but then there's other reasons also.
Okay, so the summary of our evaluation here is number one, it's a privacy issue. Number two, you have a situation where the intent really is to raise revenue as opposed
That's
to
right.
safety. And second and thirdly, you have a situation where a police officer, an individual, a person, will be in a much better position to judge exactly what happened there as opposed to the picture. So on all fronts, this is a good bill because it would prohibit that. And on top of all that, it does include that legislative intent. And I agree with Archie.
Yeah.
Every bill should have a legislative intent on it. So,
I agree with that also.
all right.
Okay.
Senate Bill SB 1010. Also, Senate Bill SCR 1002. Folks, we're dealing with these two bills as a unit because they pretty much covered the exact same terrain. They do exactly the same thing. There's a reason why we have two bills which are almost identical, and that reason isn't explained in our initial explanation of the of this session, where we find that a couple of instances we have a situation where we have two bills which are pretty much identical. One is an SCR bill, the other one is an SC bill, and we explain the difference. So if you want to know the difference, just rewind back to those lessons, and you'll get the answer. As far as the bill itself, it is what it does is very simply it imposes a prohibition. It prohibits the use of vehicle mileage tracking and taxing and so on. In other words, it's what I refer to as a freedom of travel bill, because as you probably know, in the old Soviet bloc and in some communist countries, in fact most communist countries, you're not free to move. The government dictates where you go and when you can go, etc. So what this does is that it prevents the local governments, or the state government for that matter, from imposing that kind of restriction. And apparently there is a movement afoot to do just that. So this is aimed at heading that off.
And one of the reasons for the movement of that is the small cities, or the smart cities now, that they want to start building, and limiting your travel to 15 minutes.
Right.
And what I say is, I think I am in agreement with this, and the next thing that they're going to be trying to do is having us all wear pedometers to find out how many feet we walk.
This is nothing more than prohibition against an invasion of privacy.
That's right.
For many years now, I mean, various cities have been using, photo radar to travel, to determine, what intersections you go through and where you go and where you don't go. And they use it as a fundraiser. This is just another way of repealing that. And there's been talk for some time now about the possibility of putting trackers on vehicles so that and prohibiting you from driving more than a certain number of miles. Otherwise, you'll be taxed on those excess miles. So it's another way of just raising funds for a city, and it's an invasion of your privacy. This has got to stop.
Well, I do know also, and with the Ubers and Lyft, that they all have an app, and they monitor how fast they're driving. They let them know that they're driving too fast, and other things that associate with driving is what they already are doing.
Yeah, well, you already have the technology, and private companies are doing it. Rental companies are doing it. They want to know how far you went and where you went and so on and so forth. But there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference between a business doing business, and you have the option of doing or not doing business with them, as opposed to the government doing it. I mean, you have to use your car to go to work. It doesn't make any sense to do this at the government level, unless you're in a situation where they want to control what you do. And so that is why this is a bad idea, and this is why this bill is so important.
They've been doing this on state and county and city vehicles for a long time. I just noticed one the other day. I pulled up behind it and it said, our speed limit is monitored by a device installed on this vehicle. So, I mean,
Yeah, it's a GPS type
yeah,
thing.
they've been doing that for years on,
We just don't.
now
we
they
just
want to
don't.
do it on my vehicle and I don't want them to do that.
Yeah, just don't want them to do it to us.
Yeah.
Well, and also, if people don't know that there is another bill with the U.S. Senate House about stopping people that if they get in and they're drunk, that their cars will stop. And they say that that's not true, but that is a bill that's being talked about.
But regarding the
This
bill
one.
that is going to be in the in committee this coming week, we seem to be in agreement that
Yes.
this is a good bill.
Yes.
House Bill HB 2088. Short title, Bond Override Contributions Contracts Prohibition. This bill was introduced by Representative Hendricks, and it will be in the House Regulatory Affairs Committee on the 17th, which I believe is Wednesday next week, correct? I think the 17th is Wednesday.
Yes.
Yeah, believe so, yeah.
This is basically a conflict of interest bill. It prohibits the conflict of interest that arises when a contractor funds a bond or override issue, and then is able to bid on the on the project that he helped pass via the bond issue election. If that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is, but it is happening right now. It happens regularly, and that's why there is a bill that intends to prohibit that sort of behavior. So,
The status
Archie?
quo for government.
Well, I think the bill is a good idea. However, I don't think it goes far enough. If you read the House and the Senate rules, they allow their members to introduce bills and to vote on those bills in which directly affects themselves or their family members. And their conflict of interest is just perfectly okay. So why is it not okay for me to have a conflict of interest, but it's okay for our members of our legislature to have a conflict of interest?
but Archie, that's a different issue for a different day.
I understand that, Jose, but I mean, still the public needs to know that that conflict is there, and these guys are being two-faced about it.
Well, okay, yeah, but I'll take this bill, even though there may be a little bit of hypocrisy here, because actually the way that the statute reads these days, when it was I think it was amended about 3 or 4 years ago. Now all that's required, and we're talking about the House and Senate rules now.
Right.
All that's required is that the member discloses the fact that there is a conflict of interest. So we have people who are drawing a salary from, say, an education facility, like a university or something, drawing, say, in some cases, triple-digit salaries.
Increases, yeah.
And at the same time, they get to vote on what happens with those institutions. So the conflict of interest is rampant. But you have to understand this. You have a situation where the legislator gets $24,000 a year, so most of them have to have a different job. You can't just survive on the legislature's salary by itself. So the ideal situation will be for them to recuse themselves whenever anything like this happens. But the rules regarding how you pass bills prohibits that, because if everybody were to recuse himself, you wouldn't pass any bills. Now,
Hey, good idea.
Wait a second. Wait a second. I expected you to stand up on the table and applaud. We do need some bills from time to time, folks. So
We got enough already.
No,
There's,
we-
50-some titles in our revised statutes.
This session alone, we're up to 700 and some bills.
Right.
And so,
And it's still early enough so that maybe somebody will see this and make an amendment.
I doubt it.
No, it wouldn't, it would have
Or-
to be germane and.
Rewrite the bill a little bit.
Yeah, no, that will not happen.
Oh, that won't, okay.
Let's not mess up a good bill, just, you know.
Well, let's take what we can, and I think
I agree with that.
we're all in agreement that this will be a good
Yes.
bill, and we recommend that you folks contact your legislators and express your your approval of this bill. Again, it's HB 2088, and it prohibits the contractors from bidding on projects that they help finance.
When you contact them about this bill, also ask them to amend their rules to get rid of their conflict.
You're right.
I wouldn't. I'll stick with one issue. House Bill 2017, assured water supply commingling. This bill is going to be in the House Natural Resources and Energy and Water on the 16th, which I believe is Tuesday.
Yes.
So we have a situation in Arizona with the drought and all that, and the fight over water from the Colorado River, et cetera, et cetera. We have I don't know if you could call it a crisis, but we do have a problem with water in Arizona. And Archie has been looking at this a little bit more than I have. What have you come up with, Archie?
Well, this bill is basically directed towards real estate developers. It's what is referred to as an assured water supply, and they're talking about whenever you make a housing development, you have to go to the director of the Department of Water Resources and get a certificate before you can proceed with your subdivision and the development of houses, to get a certificate from the director of the Department of Water Resources, that you have at least an assured 100-year supply of water. Unfortunately, in my humble opinion, the state of Arizona has a real problem with water supply. We get a huge amount of our water from the Colorado River. And most of you are familiar with the Central Arizona Project, which pumps water from the Colorado River. And what some of you may not know is that water comes through the city of Phoenix, and then it goes down through the city of Tucson, and they pump it on further south, and they pump it back into an aquifer down there. Now, what we don't know is how large that aquifer is and how many states that aquifer covers. So we're pumping our water supply into an aquifer that other states may be able to pump water out of that aquifer, so we're giving up our water supply. And in Arizona, each individual, according to the Department of Water Resources, uses 147 gallons of water a day. There are 7 million people in the state of Arizona, and it is growing all of the time. So you figure out how many gallons of water that is per day that's being used, and that doesn't include what is being used by businesses. Nowhere have I seen anywhere where the legislature is making any provision for the state, the cities, or the counties to build additional water impoundment sources. And at some point in time, we are going to have a problem with water supply if we don't do something.
So what is the advantage of passing this bill? What would it do for us as citizens?
Well, the only thing that it's going to do is put a restriction on developers building houses.
Well, I
Because
also,
if they can't get that assured water supply certificate, then they can't build the houses.
well, the other thing in here, there was that by December 31st of 2023, that there was supposed to be a study given to the governor, and my question is, has the study been given to the governor? And it was supposed to go to the Senate, Speaker of the House, and to the governor, and on whether a person and how a person that seeks a building permit for 6 or more residences within an active management, and it goes into how many people, what's their leases, and so on and so forth. So has this, I wonder if this has even been submitted.
Well-
To be able to go forward with a bill. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do, yes.
And so it would be interesting to know if that study was done.
Well, either earlier last year or at the end of 2022, the Department of Water Resources put out a study in which they made a finding that our groundwater is being used up faster than it is being replenished.
Okay, so what this bill would do, if passed, would be to restrict the number of houses that can be built because, or in those cases where the water supply cannot be guaranteed. You have two conflicting things here because Arizona is highly dependent, our industry, our tax bases, and everything that's done in Arizona is highly dependent on development, okay, real estate. So if you curtail the growth, then you're going to curtail the revenue. So that presents a problem. I have always been an advocate of supply side economics. In other words, if you don't have enough, you find a way to get more, as opposed to if you don't have enough, cut down. I mean, you can do both, but in this case, it would make more sense to find other sources of water, just like the desalination or whatever.
Well, I agree with that, but I mean,
But the bill itself,
the
yeah.
effect of this bill is to tell real estate developers, you can't build any more houses unless you can
So
get
is
that
that-
certificate.
is that a good thing
And
if-
we don't have the water to give you the certificate. So the end result is, one, we're not going to have any more houses, but we're going to keep having people come into the state who needs housing, which means that the value of my house is going to escalate.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to skyrocket because there's no place to put people.
So is this the net result, is it going to be good for the state?
Oh, well, I think it is something that, yes, I would be in support of this bill, but I would like to see somebody admit a bill in which they're requiring the state, the county, the cities, or somebody to build more impoundment basins, and so that we have more water.
Okay, so,
Okay.
House Bill HB 2019, short title, Groundwater Model Public Inspection Challenge. This will be in the House Natural Resources, Energy, and Water Committees, and it was introduced by Representative Griffin. And this is another one of the many bills in the legislature this year where they try to deal with the problems that we've been having with water. And Archie here has been doing a bit of research regarding this issue. What have you found out regarding this particular bill, Archie?
Well, in relation to this bill, some time ago, the Department of Water published a thing that we're using more water out of our groundwater systems than it's being replenished by. But basically what this bill does is that if I am a developer and I have to get a certificate of assured water supply for 100 years from the Department of Water Resources, and they tell me I can't have it, then they've got to explain how they've made a determination that water is not available. And then as a public citizen, then I have the right to review that and to challenge it and say that their figures are wrong. And so it's just, there's other bills that are pending in the legislature that deals with water, and this is just a measure to allow a developer to challenge the Department of Water Resources, and I think that's a good thing.
So that's pretty much the consensus then, that this would be a good bill to contact legislatures and express your positive response to it.
Right. Yes.
House Bill HB 2057, short title, Appropriation Long-Term Water Augmentation Fund. This bill is going to be heard in the House Natural Resources, Energy, and Water committee on Tuesday, the 16th. And basically, well, it was introduced by Representative Dunn, and basically what it does is that it appropriates the necessary funds for the water augmentation fund to function. And Archie, you've been looking into this more than I have.
And me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know that I necessarily disagree with the appropriation of the funds. But my problem with, of course, this is all related under Title 29 of the Arizona Revised Statutes. And you kind of have to go to those code sections and read them to see what it's all about. But as I've mentioned earlier in relation to other bills in this session, it is my humble opinion that the state of Arizona has a major problem potentially staring them in the face in the future with a lack of water, because the majority of our water comes from the Colorado River. And I'm not sure we're using it properly, but this appropriates $143 million or something like that.
Yes.
But it doesn't say what it's to be used for. Therein lies my problem with it. I think the money, appropriating the money is great if we're going to use it for the right purposes, and that is to find some way of increasing our water supply, but there's nothing in this bill that says anything about increasing, doing anything to increase the water supply. And if you read it, this bill, the money appropriated is not subject to they can keep the money. It doesn't default back to the state if they don't use it in a period of time. But what are they going to use it for? It doesn't say anything about what it's to be used for, and I think that's wrong. I'm not in favor of this bill.
And I don't think I am either, because of the reasons that you state. I didn't know exactly how I felt about it, but listening to your reasons, I agree with that. What is it for?
Well, apparently they want to not micromanage this and leave it to the supposedly experts to determine how they are going to augment the water supply.
And I have to say something, and only because I've been through this just recently, is that I have been having a water problem at my home for the last year and a half. And I got a really big bill the other day, or for last month. And when I called the water company, they addressed that we have a water issue here. When I got my bill, it said I used 47,000 gallons of water. And nobody called me, nobody said there was no red flag, nothing. And I have a problem with that. And that's,
well, it seems like your problem is with the city water department.
it is with the City of Water Department, but it all goes in together.
Okay. So,
I mean, it's all about the water, right?
so Archie, you don't like the bill because it doesn't specify how that.
It doesn't specify how the money's to be used. What I think we need to do is get rid of the director, the current director of the Department of Water Resources, and elect me as the director, and I can figure out what to do with $143 million real quick. I can.
Well,
my bank account can go up a whole bunch because they don't tell me what to do with this. And
I saw you the other day with those sticks walking around trying to find water.
That's right.
But I don't think
Just
that's
come
going
to my house.
I don't think that's going to work, Archie.
Well, my bank account sure could use $143 million, though. Yeah. So.
House Bill HB 2139. Short title, Medical Records, Minors, Confidentiality, Consent. This bill is going to be in the House Judiciary Committee on the 17th, which will be Wednesday. It was introduced by Representative Willoughby. And what this bill does is that it prevents the use of confidentiality as an excuse to keep parents in the dark regarding treatment or conditions, medical conditions on their children. I have a bit of a problem with this bill, but I would like to hear first Archie, what you have to say about it, Because I think we may be in agreement on that.
Well, as you know, under state and federal law, basically, medical records are privileged and confidential. Now, recently we've had this thing about whether or not underage children have the ability, based upon information that they receive from, teachers or other people, about changing their gender. And in my opinion, this bill is aimed directly at that. It says that the medical records of a underage child is not privileged and it's not privileged and confidential as it relates to that child's parents or custodian. And I think that is an appropriate relief, because in the past there's been push to say that these children can give their own personal consent without their parents' knowledge, and they can change their gender and take medication and have surgery, and that is just not right. But it does exclude a minor who has been declared emancipated. And I think that's appropriate too.
Yeah, well, that's because it's supposedly the child has the capacity to act as an adult. But my problem with this bill is not the intent. I think the intent is good. The intent is that you don't want to go behind the child's parent in doing some kind of medical procedure, which these days the procedure de jure happens to be sex transformation or whatever it is that they do. My problem with it is that it states that their medical records are not privileged and confidential information. If they were to take that out of the bill and simply say that the parents can have access to those records, because there's no way, in my opinion, every person's records, medical records, are privileged and confidential. And this states very clearly that they don't consider that to be the case here. And that is where I have a problem with it. So it may seem maybe it's a minor thing, but other than that, I would be in favor of this.
I'm not in favor of this at all. I'm a hard no, because in here it says that the records are that the parents are privileged and they're allowed access to the records. But then it says, and the minor patient notifies the healthcare provider by written authorization signed by the minor patient, saying that they don't want their parent to be able to look at these records. That is wrong. There is no child that should be able and allowed to say, my parents cannot look at my records. Because who's the parent? Not the child, it's the parent that's... And so I am a hard no on this one.
Yeah, well, I'm a soft no because what I don't like about it is that they start from the point of view that the record is not privileged and confidential. I like to start from the point of view that the record is confidential and privileged, and that we do make this exception in the case of the parental guidance. And in most cases, we are in a situation where the parent should have control as to what happens to the child medically.
That is absolutely right. But then do you think that the child, if the minor child says, I don't want my parent looking at my records, do you think that they should have a right to do that?
That is a very important question, and the answer is difficult.
See, I don't find that difficult at all. A minor child should not have the ability to say that my parent cannot look at my records.
I'm a strong yes in favor of this, because it reinforces the Parents' Bill of Rights in Title I, Section 601. It reinforces the parents' rights under the Parents' Bill of Rights.
But what about what I said about...
Because, well, I mean, I have to disagree with you that it allows the child to say that the parents can't see the records.
What it says
this
here...
prohibits it. This prohibits that.
But it says here, and may be disclosed to the minor parent's parent, has the mental capacity that minor parents' medical records are not privileged and confidential.
As
and
it
may be-
relates to the parents and the custodian.
Well, no, it's, okay. We have talked about this before, that these bills are written in such a manner that they're not always clear what their intent is or what they really mean. And this is a typical case as to, it's not clear as to what they're talking about. My objection to it is that it starts from the point of view that the information is not privileged and confidential.
Unless.
And Archie's saying, well, that relates only to the parent. Well, that is not clear from the language of the bill.
In here it says, unless the minor patient notifies the healthcare provider by written authorization signed by the minor that the minor's parents are the minor's parents, our medical records are privileged and confidential and may not be disclosed to the minor patient's parents or guardians.
So your objection is that if you have a 5-year-old, that 5-year-old is not in a position to say,
Neither is a 14-year-old.
Well, okay, but let's go to the extreme. Let's say a 5-year-old, because this will cover a 5-year-old as well. It doesn't.
Correct.
It doesn't state any age. So you say a 5-year-old should not have the right to say, I don't want my parents to look at my records.
Correct.
And this would allow for that.
Correct.
No, it don't. The minor has to present a paper signed by the parents that it's okay for you to not tell us
So
about
maybe-
what my minor's records.
No, it's the one that signs the paper is the child,
Is the child.
not the parent.
According to
Read
this.
it again.
Okay.
Read it again.
Oh, we'll all read this one again.
Okay, all right.
Because maybe we're all reading it
Signed
different.
by the minor parent. So it left an S
Patient,
off of the
patient. It's
minor
patient.
patient. Oh, but go on, read on down.
No-
Unless the
notifies the
minor
healthcare
parent
provider.
notifies the healthcare provider by written authorization signed by the parent.
By the minor patient. You're reading parent and it's patient.
Oh, that's right, it is.
That's why I have a
It should-
problem with this.
Well, it's supposed to be parent.
Is-
Well, this could be a typo.
Well, that's,
Well, I mean, after all, legislative council, what are they good for?
Yeah, but again, we have several objections to this bill, and for that reason, unless it's and it could be modified. That's why we have the process. We have amendments that can be added. The language can be changed. So there's a variety of ways in which we can fix this. But as it stands right now, none of it. Well,
I'm a
Archie,
hard no.
Does that change your mind, Archie, or is it
Nope,
just
nope.
okay? Well, it's going to be
It still
two-
reinforces the parents' Bill of Rights.
Yeah, but it does it in a manner that is not, we don't think it's good. So, that's our position, and we're sticking to it. So, folks, this is what this is all about, okay? We discuss these bills, we bring up stuff that most of the time you're not gonna see anyplace else, and this gives you the ability to make an intelligent decision one way or the other.
and as you see, the three of us may not always agree.
We may not also be intelligent.
Senate Bill SB 1005. Short title, Public Monies Ideology Training Prohibition. This bill was introduced by Senator Hoffman. It will be heard in the Senate Government Committee on Wednesday, the 17th. Basically, this is an anti-CRT bill. It prohibits public entities from requiring programs to promote the concept that one race or sex is better or worse than another. We've been dealing with this for some time. There have been bills that have been introduced in the past, but they did not get through. This is the whole thing about critical race theory, the fact that the idea that because a person is white, that person is inherently racist, and so on. So, Archie, I'm sure you have something to say about this.
Well, I think this is kind of like the last bill that we dealt with on medical records being confidential and privileged. I think to a degree this is having a bearing on the thing where we're now going through this gender identity type thing. And you can still, under this bill, you can still have instructions or require employees to go through training on, males are not better than females, and females are not better than males, and, that kind of thing, sexual discrimination and that type of thing. But now you're not going to be able to harass an employee and force them to go to a training in which you say, well, I know you think your gender is a female, but you need to become a male. This is prohibiting that, in my opinion. And from that standpoint,
Yeah, well, I have a different take on the bill after reading the bill, and that is that there is a movement afoot in some sectors of our society to condemn people because of their race, and it's not the traditional one. It's now mostly the white people. We see that they want to get rid of monuments that are offensive. They want to get rid of street names that are offensive and that sort of thing. And that's the whole idea behind this critical race theory, and that is that certain so if you're a male, you are physically, you are geared, you're wired to be a sexist. A woman cannot be sexist, but a man certainly will be. If you're white, you're going to be a racist. And that's what this training is all about, and that's what this bill is trying to eradicate. That people should not be required to accept these concepts as a condition of employment, actually, because it's part of the job. So that's why I'm totally in favor of this bill.
I am too. I think it's a good bill. I don't think that the states or counties or cities or anybody should be developing a department to make me change my mind on whether or not I have a privilege or I don't have a privilege. It's,
I'm in agreement with the two of you. I mean, you've said everything that I...
Well, we have a rare situation here where we all agree on the bill.
That's good. Yeah.
That's really good.
So, folks, what we're recommending. We're recommending that you contact your legislator and show your approval of this bill. You can do that by contacting them by mail. Well, not by mail, by email. By the time the mail gets there, this will be all done. So email, telephone, or using the request-to-speak system that's now available to all citizens.
This brings to an end this week's edition of Arizona Bill Watch. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, please make sure you tell your friends, relatives, and anyone else you know. And make sure you tune in next week for another fantastic edition of Arizona Bill Watch.